Hey there, it's Andre, the Impulsive Thinker. Today I have Teresa Easler. She's back for another fantastic conversation. She's the founder of Connect to the Core. They have worked with hundreds of individuals and companies over the years, coaching them on how to get other people to do what they want them to do in a non-manipulative way. And I am a student of her program on how to effectively communicate. So I highly recommend you check out her website, and it'll be in the show notes. I think it's just connecttothecore.com.
Correct.
Thank you, Teresa, for being on again. We'll do a take two.
All right.
I went to a concert in Toronto with my daughter for a favorite band. We got back at 2 a.m.
Oh my gosh, who did you see?
Lovejoy. They're from Europe,
Yeah.
England. They've never toured outside of England. This is the first time. And yeah, so it's her birthday gift.
You were a rock and roller last night, huh?
Yeah. I don't mind their music. I wouldn't say I go see them again, go out of my way, but it's enjoyable music. But for her, it was really good to watch.
Good. What fun.
Yeah. And she didn't want to hang out with her friends. She's about to be 15. So like, oh, that's I'm doing something right.
All right. Your kids want to hang out with you? Usually that takes like 10 more years before that happens.
Yeah. So I'm going to take it while I can.
Yeah. I don't blame you.
All right. Take two. 3, 2, 1. Hey there, it's Andre, the Impulsive Thinker. I have Teresa Easler from Connect to the Core coming back to discuss with us. Chris, take 3. All right, take 3. 3, 2, 1. Hey there, it's Andre, the Impulsive Thinker. Today I have Teresa Easler, who's the founder of Connect to the Core. They have worked with hundreds of individuals and companies over the years, coaching them on how to get other people to do what they want them to do in a non-manipulative way. Teresa, thanks again for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here, Andre. Thank you for inviting me back.
Yeah, because the last time you were here, we talked about how to be an effective communicator. And I know you're good at that because I took your program and it actually works very well. So I recommend people to go to connecttothecore.com and try to check out the program. I'll have it in the show notes. But today I want to talk about the founder leader. We were in a workshop, a strategic coach, and I asked you how things are going. And your reply was, you know what, Andre, I'm a founder. I need someone else now. And when you said that, I saw in your face that you had a lot of clarity and you're in a better place. And it hit me immediately what that meant. And I got in a better place. And then you followed up with a blog about the 3 different categories of leaders. And can you start us off by what are these 3 different categories of leaders? And what did you mean by I'm a founder?
Yeah. Well, it was going through that process and coming to that realization. I would love to tell you that it was a pleasant one. It actually, it was through a little bit of struggle because I felt like I should be doing things that one, I didn't want to do. Right. And because like most of us, if we don't want to do something, then it doesn't happen, or it doesn't happen really well. And as I was exploring it, I went, and for me, it was like really growing my company, taking my company and putting rocket fuel in it and letting it take off. And coming to the realization that I'm not that person. I love the idea of it. I love the vision of it. I love all of those things. But me waking up in the day, every day going, oh, let me figure out how I can just grow this sucker. Mm-hmm. It doesn't do it for me. So I'm classic in being a founder leader. I can go where there's nothing and create something. Mm-hmm. And I'm a visionary. I can see where it can go. I can see what it might look like. The actual taking it to the next step of it is really what a growth leader does. The one who can take the ideas, the intellectual capital, the methodologies, the frameworks, whatever you want to call that, or whatever has been developed, that's somebody who can take that and they can run with it, and that they love the running with it. I love the creating of it. Somebody else does the running with it. And then there's a third stage of it. And that stage of it is, I'm going to say, is more of the maintaining of it, or the keeping it stable and continuing to go. So if you think about it, maybe like a classic leader who's in that role today, right now, is somebody like a Tim Cook.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Cook was
From
not
Apple.
a founder leader, right? That was Steve Jobs,
Mm-hmm.
right? But Tim Cook is that third kind, in my opinion, is that third kind of leader. It's still growing. It's still, it's still advancing. I mean, Apple
Incrementally growing and sustaining itself. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there are innovations. It's not like they're standing still. There are innovations. There are things that are happening. It's still, I think it has the largest market cap of any corporation in the world still. If not number one, it's number two, or it's somewhere there at the very top. So he's doing his job. He's doing what he's supposed to do. Very different than somebody who is a founder leader. He wouldn't be the guy I would go to say, here, let's found something new. We're going to make it up from nothing.
So like the startup person.
Yeah.
So why is it important to understand? What was it important to you when you got that clarity that you're actually a founder leader? And what I heard also was that you trying to be the growth leader was actually causing you some stress and anguish.
Yeah.
And shooting on yourself. And when you said that should be doing because I'm trying to grow it, when in fact, that's not my skill set, is what I heard.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it gave me what it did is it freed me up. And it's like, okay, now I don't have to put the burden of that on me that I've got, should do that. And instead, what I can do is I can find a growth partner. I can find
tell me more.
Somebody else.
Right. Tell me more. Find a growth partner now. So you're not saying leave.
No.
Wow. Okay. I like this part. You're not leaving, but now you need a growth partner. Please elaborate.
Yeah. So and again, I'm in the formulation phase of this for my own business. What I know is I've created really great programs, great intellectual property. They make, they allow people to speak what's in their hearts. They allow like, here's what I really want to get out. And I know it does that. People have transformational experiences out of working with us. And I love that. For somebody who would like to have that kind of impact and who knows how to grow, I'm looking for that partner. It's like, great, I'll come up with stuff. I can come up with stuff. I come up with every day. There's new stuff. So I know how to do that. And that excites me. I love doing that sort of thing.
So you're actually spending more time in your unique ability now, but allowing someone else to grow it. And you don't have to worry about that aspect, because that's, you're trying to figure out how to do that. But that's where you need a growth partner.
Right.
Cool.
A growth partner, and knock on wood, it grows so, fast and well and all of that. Then we need somebody else who's going to say, let's take this to another level. But that's really, the big thing is the freedom from recognizing this is not what I do. This is not, I can grow it. I can continue to grow my company, but somebody else could really grow it.
Well, that makes sense to me, because I made a realization a few years ago, especially with my undiagnosed ADHD, and startup phases I love, because it's continuous changed. I don't know what's going to happen day to day. Everything's urgent, everything's new, everything's novel, new challenge. And then once we got to the growth stage, I was starting to lose interest without realizing it, because there wasn't no longer as urgent or as challenging anymore, because things were working well. And then
Right.
when Gene
And it
Engineer,
wasn't new,
it
or it
wasn't
didn't feel new.
exactly. Yeah, it's the same stuff starting to repeat itself. And to some people, they said I only repeated twice, but to me, once it's repeated twice, I have a problem. But then the biggest problem I got to, and I've shared this quite a few times in my shorts, is once it got to that sustaining, we were doing well. I had a good team. We were incrementally growing every year. I was doing less. I was working more in unique ability, but with my undiagnosed ADHD, I was bored. So I was starting to
Yeah.
create fires.
Yeah.
And then I ended up losing that company because I torched it, pun
Yeah.
intended there. But that was because I was trying to sustain it.
Right.
Following all these rules and I should do this, I should that, and it wasn't working. And then if I would have had it, then I reflect back and said, I should have just gone and say, hey, I want to do a couple other projects. You guys keep going the way it's going. You guys, they could have taken it from there and continually growing it incrementally.
Right.
But you gave it better language as being a leader type or a different
Right.
category of leader. So the founder, growth leader, and in your blog, sorry, it says a sustaining leader, but you rephrase it as maintaining or stable or sustaining with
Yeah.
incremental growth. I kind of paraphrased it. So, and I like you brought on the fact that just because you're the founder leader, you need a growth partner. You're not saying you need to leave.
Right. I don't want to leave.
No, but
I
you
don't
got
want
more
to, I don't
permission.
want to leave.
So
Do
you
you
can
know,
be, yeah,
there have been some of my clients too, and because I work with so many entrepreneurial companies, you know, I think of one of my clients, and this is a large entrepreneurial company. So it's north of $300 million.
Mm-hmm.
And the CEO is a classic founder leader. And he's done a good job of obviously growing the business to that degree, and has a vision for a much bigger company,
Right,
well
right,
over $1 billion company. But he's the one, he and I spoke as like, you can get the rest of the team in place so that they're running the mothership.
right.
Because the mothership, the main business, is what keeps the lights on and pays people's salaries and does all of that. So you don't want to blow that up. And you want to create your own laboratory.
Right.
I called it, for him, I said, you want to create your sandbox to play in.
I call it my drooling room.
Yeah, right. Right. So you want that space where you can go and create. And so now we've set it up, and I've worked with him to set up the rest of the company where he's got a leadership team in place that runs it, and they're taking that company and it runs beautifully.
So you actually gain more time to be more creative, that the growth partner can take off.
Right.
Right.
But you know what happens out of that is in his sandbox, he's come up with all sorts of new innovative ideas that are, multiple millions of dollars ideas.
Right.
Because it frees him up to go, oh, how about this? How about that? Now, are they all like winners? No. Some of them are duds. But you know what? If you get a couple of $100 million winners, it's okay. It's a good day.
Right. But you have the time to do it. And
that's what he's doing. And he's having a blast.
Yeah. And I was listening to a podcast with Vern Harnish, actually. He was saying that leaders actually should schedule time to just think with nothing, because that's where the ideas come. Yeah. To go the next level. Yeah. So you're getting more time to create and be creative without the worrying of growing it, because that's not your skill set. That's not your ability. And we can talk about from the growing leader to the maintaining stable leader, it'd be the same transition. If we got to a growth period, because I think a growth leader would want to be continually wanting to grow and not stop. Right. And then, but at the same time, every company has a life cycle. We need the startup. We need the growth spurt. but then yeah, you
Right.
need to sustain it, I think, if you're going to scale it effectively.
Right. And that's, and I think that the hardest thing, by the way, it's not better to be a founder leader than a growth leader than a
Correct.
sustaining leader,
Exactly.
right? One's not better than another. They're different skill sets. And so I think
And all equally important at the stage of the company.
right,
Right.
right. And I know for myself, the biggest thing was admitting to myself that, this is my sweet spot, not this part over here. And at first, like I said, I felt like I was supposed to be able to do all of those things,
Right.
that I should have that capability. And I'm personally, I'm not wired that way.
Right.
Some people might be able to to straddle a couple of them. I don't know. I know I'm not. That's not something I'm good at.
Well,
And
that's really, I like admitting to yourself which leader you are, and then shed the ones that you should be doing. I think that's a very good like reflecting back on Jade Engineers. For me, I got started getting into trouble when, yeah, I'm a founder. When I was in the growth in the sustaining lanes, I was actually looking for outside resources, and I started to do things I should be doing because that's what the book says and all that. But it didn't make sense to me. But I tried, and it didn't work because I should have just stayed at my founder and start using my drooling room to better effectiveness.
yeah, yeah. And some of that, I mean, all entrepreneurial companies, it's as much an art as it is a science.
Mm-hmm.
And the timings of those things, I think you start with the awareness of it, and then you organize around what you're able to do. And I think particularly as a founder leader, we have a different kind of visioning process as opposed. I think that growth leaders are still have vision. They vision differently. I think each of the different kinds of leaders have vision differently. And I know for myself, one of the things as I was spending more time shoulding on myself, thinking I was supposed to do certain things that I wasn't really compelled or drawn to do, that I started focusing on what I didn't want instead of what I did want. And
Wow.
I was so present to, yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want this. And it was like all of the not wants became the thing that was at the forefront of my mind instead of focusing on what I do want, which is really how I envision.
Right.
When I envision, it's here's what I want, here's what I
Right.
see, and not here's what I don't see. Right?
Yeah.
And so it pulled me into actually a kind of thinking that doesn't support my vision.
Right. And I think that's a very good point. Like, focusing on what you don't want to do rather than what you want to do. It's like, a lot of times I say try to avoid mistakes. One of my mantras is as long as I'm making new mistakes, I'm learning. And I always stop and identify what didn't go wrong.
Right.
And come up with new strategies and strategies and systems to prevent that again, rather than sit down and say, hey, that went very well. Why? I think it's harder to figure out why things went well because it's so much you don't know. Luck, everything fell in the right place. But when someone didn't go right, it's in your face what it was. So I think it falls along the line and looking at it versus what I don't want to do rather than what do I like to do, or equally. I think you can find out what you like to do if you're looking at the stuff that you don't like to do. Frustration list.
But the other thing is when you are in the space from, again, I'll speak personally about this, when I'm in the space of creating my vision, one of the words is I'm creating.
Yeah.
I'm imagining. It's exercising that part of my brain that I don't exercise when I'm in another,
Mhm.
when I'm trying to do something that's outside of my sandbox, when I'm
Yep.
outside of my sweet spot. And that throws me into, it's like, well, what don't I like? What do I not want to have here? What do I not want to include? And I mean, I think it's important to have those awarenesses. I know for myself is where the focus was. Is a focus on what I'm creating, where my imagination is taking me, what's possible, or am I using that creativity focused on no? One is focused
Right.
on yes, the other one's focused on no.
Yeah, and when you're using that energy, focusing that energy on the wrong things, it's inefficient use of your energy. And by
Yeah,
having the clarity that you're not a growth person or a sustaining person means it's easier to say, no, that's a growth thing, not my sandbox. This is mine
yeah,
over here as a growth. And then opens your eyes to say, hey, I need this help and who to look for.
right,
Right.
right.
So this is a really great conversation as usual. It's very, I don't know what day. I don't think there'll ever be a day, Teresa, where we get together and it'll be a boring conversation or not
I
an
hope
insightful.
not. I certainly
Actually,
hope not.
boring will
I would
never end, but it's more the insightful and always learn something with you. And I know the
thank
learners
you.
did here. And like the way you put so much thought in these three types of leaders, to me was I need to share this with the leader because I think it'll give a lot of the listeners hopefully they can get their first set to find out what they don't want to do. And these
Yeah,
three different categories are important and just stick to it. We keep talking about the unique abilities, stay what you're doing with your abilities and strengths. And this is to me, you help me give me permission to say, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not a growth guy. I'm not a sustaining guy.
yeah,
And it's okay.
yeah,
And like you said before, I should be doing this because I'm the entrepreneur, but again, that's someone else's measuring stick. That's all the other people's bravado. They claim they do it all, but realistically they can't.
yeah.
And you touched earlier that you can do a little bit of some in each zone, but in the end, you're better in the one,
Right, right.
right?
So, I mean, and in any kind of entrepreneurial organization, that we wear a lot of hats.
Yes,
As we're building and growing, we wear a lot of hats until we're
out of
able
necessity.
to, out of necessity,
Yeah.
for resources that are
Mm-hmm.
available, budget that's available, whatever it is. And so we wear a lot of hats. So I'm not suggesting that all of a sudden it's like, you know what, I'm a growth leader, or I am a founder leader, or I'm a sustain. That here's my sweet spot. Therefore, I am never going to do any of those other
Correct.
things.
Yep. Yep.
That might not be possible. It's important to know it. I mean, in my situation, I
Mm-hmm.
still have to be responsible for growth.
Right.
I'm responsible for that.
Yep.
There's not another person in my team that's responsible for that. It falls on me. So until I have that person, that growth
Right.
partner,
Exact.
guess what? I'm doing growth.
I think that's a very good clarifier to make because it's not like, yeah, just because I'm a founder, I'm not going to do the other two, but we need to do the other stuff until we find the right person to provide us that support in that role. So I think it's a really
Yeah,
great point.
yeah.
Nice.
And you support one another. You have to support each other
Right.
because, you always have to have, in my mind, I think you always have to have, even if you're at the sustained part, you're Tim Cook, you
Mm-hmm.
still have to have some of that founder leader mindset contributing to keep it fresh, to keep it so that you don't become disrupted.
You still
You've
need
got to
that influence.
continually.
You need those two influences, the founder influence,
Yeah,
but maybe your sustaining ability is a lot stronger than the other two. That makes
right.
sense to me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Wow.
it's not okay, one of these and none of the others. They all have to work really well together. They feed each other
Mm-hmm.
and allow for, to me, it allows for something that can be built and sustained and have a lasting impact.
Yeah. And wow, again, you really ended that. Great clarity. And I enjoy our conversations every time. So
Me
just a
too.
quick recap. So we got the three different types of leaders: a founder leader, a growth leader, a sustaining, maintaining, stable leader. Um, and each type of leader has their own way of visioning, their own methods of executing, and they're all equally important in a entrepreneurial company. So you can still be an entrepreneur in all three of those types. It's just the timing at the stage of which where the company's at, their effectiveness would be more important. And I like what you said earlier about focusing on what you don't want to do rather than what you do want to do can help you categorize yourself as the leader type. Because like you said, it gave you freedom and clarity and more time to be creative as a founder in your case. And that's what I wanted this conversation for the listeners to be all about, is to get clarity on the type of leader that you are. So I want you to think about that. And it's okay not to be the leader in a different company phases. So maybe you're not a founder, maybe you're a growth person. They're all equally important, and it's cool. And what you don't like to do, think about it that way. I think that'll help you direct your which category you're best suited for, or you're more comfortable with it. I think is another way to look at it too. So
Yeah.
what type of leader are you, listener? And Teresa, thanks again.
Thank you, Andre.
And to you, listener, thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.